He is a chairman and CEO for the Karras Company, Inc., a registered investment advisor located in Roy, Utah. I heard a shout out to Roy earlier. Mr. Karras serves as a Weber State University trustee. He's on the board for Weber State University's Olin Walker Institute of Politics and Public Service, and he serves on the board of Marriott Medical. He served in the Utah State Legislature from 1981 to 1990, where he served as Speaker of the House. He was on the Board of Trustees for the Salt Lake Olympic Committee and served 12 years as a member of the Utah Board of Regents, where he was chairman for 2001 to 2005. Mr. Karras earned a Bachelor of Science in Banking and Finance from Weber State College and an MBA from the University of Utah. Join me in offering Nolan a warm welcome.
Thank you. I'm just going to get that thing to stay a second. And I'm going to see if I can get you your thing. I introduced to you Austin Cox, who's back here, is going to drive the PowerPoint. Austin's the executive director for Prosperity 2020, which is the chamber education network, and Education First, which is a political action committee that I'm a part of, and we really appreciate him being here. He's also been drafted to help us with what we call our schools now. There are a lot of people out there working on this, and I'm going to go quickly because Linda Cruz told me that everybody leaves at 25 after whether you're through. Probably ought to get moving here. Quinn, it's good to see you. Dr. McKay was at Weber State when I was there. I have fond memories of him. He's a great man, and there's a lot of good people in this audience that I know and remember and appreciate.
Talk up a bit, please.
I'll do it. This thing is kind of awkward. I'll see if I can't talk into it here. This morning, I've got a picture up here of Jackson Reddy. Nope. Yeah, you can see it. I'm going to read you the Facebook post from the mother of Jax, the little blonde boy. This morning, Jax and I were discussing his wild hair. I told him that he needed a haircut this weekend. He said that he wanted his head shaved really short so he could look like his friend, Reddy. He said he couldn't wait to go to school on Monday with his hair like Reddy so that his teacher wouldn't be able to tell them apart. I thought it'd be so hilarious to confuse his teacher with the same haircut. Now, this picture is from Jackson Reddy's Christmas program. You see the resemblance. It'd be neat if we were all 5-year-olds again. Have that judgment go away. I thought that was a special way to talk about today. We have a lot of Jacksons and Reddys in our school system. This year alone, we're adding 10,000 students to the school system. In a state that funds schools the least of any state in the nation. Any state in the nation, including District of Columbia. I hope you're proud of that fact. I'm here today to convince you that our educational system needs additional resources, and it is time for the community to rise up in support of both public and higher education. The world that Jackson Reddy will face will be dramatically different than the one that I grew up in, and that perhaps you grew up in. I'm going to go to a quote by Thomas Friedman, and I hope you've read his new book. He's here in town, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen his book. Fantastic. He puts things in a perspective that I love. Mr. Friedman's book, if you haven't been aware of it, is Thank You for Being an Optimist Guide to Thriving in the Age of Acceleration. He talks about globalization, technology, and global warming or climate change. And it's no surprise that so many people feel fearful or unmoored these days. In this book, Mr. Friedman will argue that we are living through one of the greatest inflection points in history, perhaps unequaled since Johannes Gutenberg, a German blacksmith and printer, launched the printing revolution in Europe, paving the way for the Reformation. The largest forces on the planet, technology, globalization, and climate change, are all accelerating at once. As a result, so many aspects of our society, workplace and geopolitics, are being reshaped and need to be reimagined. And I continue to quote, there is a mismatch between the change and the pace of change and our ability to develop the learning systems, training systems, management systems, social safety nets, and government regulations that would enable citizens to get the most out of the accelerations and cushion much of the impact. I strongly recommend the book. I'm sure those of you who read it would agree with me. So at least according to Mr. Friedman, and I agree, we live in an age of accelerations. In November, we had an election about the Rust Belt and restoring jobs. I know there are two camps about our current president, and I will not make this subject more controversial than to say he has a big task ahead of him to stop globalization and technological changes that move faster than we can cope. It's not just the Rust Belt. The Pew Research study in 2015 was announced that there's a clear majority of adults that no longer live in the middle class. Look at that, it's online, it's the Pew Research, you get to find it out. Well, I'm going to go to another book that I would recommend to you. It's called Our Kids, the American Dream in Crisis. It's by Robert Putnam. Mr. Putnam makes the case that we're dividing into the educated and the uneducated, and he defines the uneducated as those with just high school degrees. Think about that. I'm currently serving on the Weber County Intergenerational Poverty Advisory Committee, and I've decided that I probably don't understand poverty. They've got me reading a book about riches out of poverty, Gary. And to listen to the case studies and thinking about what these folks go through, I'm getting a little training here about things that I maybe didn't appreciate before. Here's a quote from Mr. Putnam. Education is supposed to help level the playing field. Horace Mann called it the great equalizer. Now it's closer to the great fortifier, compounding the advantages of class, since the affluent can come better prepared when more able to pay. A few decades ago, the gap between the rich and the poor kids in finishing college was 39 percentage points. The rich had 39% better graduation. It's now 51%. Even poor kids with high test scores are less likely to graduate than rich kids with low test scores. Wow. In the age of accelerations and a growing problem with the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, we face an interesting challenge. It is a well-known fact that the U.S. has the greatest income inequality of the developed world. Now, I'm not advocating that we tax our way out of this issue. But I am advocating that I believe a robust educational system can help some of the issues we face. If you're as frustrated as I am with what's going on nationally, and even in the state, at least you can put your hands on something and make a difference with education in the state of Utah. So let's talk about Utah's economy and workforce. And I'm proud of where we are. We have a great economy. But let's talk about the reality. Utah has high levels of employment. We're a low-wage state. Household income has not made significant progress. According to Workforce Services, in 2008, we lost 54,000 jobs. We've replaced them, but at $10,000 per job less. Actually, you want to go? The majority of jobs coming to Utah are relatively low paying. Now, this is my opinion, I suppose. Low paying call centers and other service type businesses. Of our employers, 5 of them are private, 1 of them is sort of private. Walmart, Smith's Food King or Kroger, L3 Communications, Zions, and IHC, and that's why I said 1 of them, IHC, is a nonprofit. The rest of them are all government entities. Contrast that if you go up to Seattle and think about the industries that sustain that economy. Utah has a goal passed by the government and the legislature to have 66% of our workforce having a certificate or degree or a similar credential by 2020. That's where Prosperity 2020 got its name. At the present level of investment, Utah will not meet that goal. We're 47%, and that's now that they count Sunday college as part of that certificate. Carter Valley, a professor at Georgetown, did a study and said, Utah, you've got to raise the level of your educational attainment so that 66% of the people have a certificate, a college degree, or graduate degree, for you to be able to sustain an economy in this modern world. We're falling far short. We're 19 percentage points below and only 3 years away from it. What are the consequences of us not reaching the goal? I had lunch with Rich Nelson. Many of you know Richard, who's the Utah Technology Council head. He reported to me that we have thousands, he wouldn't even let the word hundreds come out of his mouth, thousands of jobs that are unfilled in his industry, to the point where the companies who want to stay here are having to relocate or have branch offices in other states because they can't find the talent they need to be able to provide for their employees, or provide for their companies. Hill Air Force Base can hire every engineer, electrical engineer we graduate in the state for the next 5 years. We have to double or triple our efforts to try and provide for these industries. I was caught by the fact that a recent New York Times article stated that we are a state that actually out-migrates our graduates. We're one of the states that sends their graduates out. As I said in the beginning, I'm here to convince you that our educational system needs additional resources. And I believe bolstering our educational system will help answer some of the pressing issues facing our children, the Jacksons and the Reddys of the world. Let me go back to Mr. Friedman, if I can, for one more quote. We need to protect workers, not jobs, because every worker today will most likely have to transition multiple times to multiple jobs as the pace of change accelerates. So the best way to help workers is by ensuring that they are flexible, that they have skills, safety nets, healthcare, and lifelong learning opportunities to make those leaps, and that they live in cities open to innovation, entrepreneurship, and high IQ risk takers. I serve on an advisory board for a trucking company, and there's a certain group of people who are willing to go 2 or 3 weeks away from their families every month and live away and so forth. Well, Uber's going to change that. They're going to have people who have computers to drive. What are those folks going to do for a living? And you can count that on with taxis and so on and so forth in the world we live in, this world of acceleration. Now, I believe Utah has the opportunity to control some of these risks by bolstering education outcomes. What is the key ingredient in an outstanding educational system? Teachers, plain and simple. It is the quality of the teachers in the classroom that makes the biggest difference. Well, there's a teacher shortage. Why? While there's been a steady decrease in university educational preparation enrollment, there are not enough kids even applying to be teachers, and can you blame them? But we have a teacher shortage, not just in Utah, but across the nation. In Utah, 42% leave the profession in the first 5 years. If you can't keep the best inside the classroom, how are you going to educate your children or your grandchildren? Attempts at attracting more people into the teaching profession through alternative forms of licensure do not fill the gap. The 4 largest districts in Utah can hire every teacher graduating from every university in the state. Think about that. 4 districts have the appetite to hire every teacher that comes out of Brigham Young, Westminster, and all the other colleges and universities. And part of the reason is there's just not enough of them applying. There are not enough of them in the queue. So why are they leaving? Studies indicate insufficient salary has been one of the top reasons that teachers leave. But besides salary, a major reason for low job satisfaction is the feelings of stress and being overwhelmed in the profession. Testing, being overworked, too many demands placed on them, lack of support, lack of resources, and other school-related factors play into that. But why am I talking about teachers is important? We had a conference, Education First in Prosperity 20, about 3 years ago. We put together a plan. It's a written plan we put on our site about how we think we can improve education. This is a bunch of business people speaking for education. And we had a professor come from Stanford as our final speaker, and he got up and said, there's no correlation with any of this nonsense. The only thing that works is to have a good teacher in the classroom. That's the only correlation that works. Research suggests that teacher quality is the single variable in student learning, explaining as much as 40% of the difference between students. But what about our academic results? And I know I'm going quickly here. I'm worried about Linda's exits. Where's Linda? She can't leave. The academic results in the U.S. This is out of the National Conference of State Legislators report called No Time to Lose. And Senator Stevenson, our own senator, sits on that committee. This is a quote from the National Conference. The U.S. workforce, widely acknowledged to be the best educated in the world half a century ago, is now among the most least well-educated in the world. Let that sink in. Most state education systems are falling dangerously behind the world in a number of international comparisons, and our own national assessment of educational progress, leaving the United States overwhelmingly unprepared to succeed in the 21st century. These are our legislators' comments. According to the Program for International Student Assessment, compared to other developed nations, the United States ranks 34th in math, 24th in science, and 14th in reading. This is another quote from the NCSL. At this place, we struggle to compete economically against even developing nations, and our children will struggle to find jobs in the global economy. There's one state that competes with the nations depending on these better educational systems. It's Massachusetts. Talk to Mitt Romney one of these days and ask him how they did it. I can tell you they decided to pay the teachers, pay them well, and then hold them accountable. Now, troubling results in Utah, we get a C- from Education Week for our educational system. End-of-level testing shows that we're 44% competent in English language arts. That means there's 56% that are not competent in English language arts. 48 in science. Utah students score below the national average in every ACT category. Percent of Utah students who meet the ACT benchmarks, 33% meet them in science, 34% in math, 44% reading, 59% in English. Goodness. Now I'm giving you a message that's difficult to give, but I want you to know how much support I have in my heart for the system we have and for the people who are there. They're laboring under some difficult circumstances. I don't have time to go through it today, but go to the Utah Foundation site and look at the report where they talk about $1.2 billion has been removed from the educational system in the last 20 years, and they document how it happened. Now that seems almost unbelievable, but you go to a report and you'll see where it comes from. I told you we're dead last in the nation. In the days when I was a legislator, and I know that was back in the gas lamp days, but Speaker Hughes accused me of that the other day. We had a bigger effort. We knew that we were in the top 5 in our percent of our spend on education. We're now 37th. So we have the most students per in any state as a per capita. We have the lowest spending, and now we're dropped to the 37th in spending as a percent of our personal income. There's a formula for highly effective schools, and I'm going to go to that slide 11 if you're ready. Let me also. I serve as the chair of the Governor's Commission on Educational Excellence. We spent 2 years reviewing what we ought to do to try and improve. The NCSL report names 2 things that we agree with totally: early education and supporting and enriching the backgrounds. Those are 2 of the things the NCSL agrees with, the Governor's Commission agrees with. So we need high quality early learning experiences. I don't have time to go through the Granite experience. You're already aware of it, I think, but they took the students that they test early and say this child is headed for special education. That's a very expensive process. They then had Goldman Sachs put up a social bond. They put those students into an early education program. It was a quality education program. 1 of 110 ended up in special ed. 99% success. We can't get money for them. When I talked to a superintendent the other day and said, what are you going to do about early education? She said, Nolan, I can't get enough money to keep teachers in the classroom. I can't keep qualified teachers in the classroom. How am I going to spend money on early education when I can't keep the teachers in the classroom? We have to have an emphasis on reading, language arts, and math, and the lower grades continuing. We have to have high standards. In this state, it drives me crazy. We have a standard that comes out, and because somebody thinks Obama had something to do with it, it becomes this national obsession. It was a Utah standard, but you have to have standards. I'm a businessman. I expect somebody to hold the system accountable and expect that they learn something. So we have to have high standards and a robust and reliable assessment program. We have one called SAGE, but they keep weakening it. Retain high-quality teachers, and we have to provide the teachers with a professional environment for them to work. Some of the countries that beat us actually have 20 or 30% of their time where the teachers get together and talk about what they're doing in the students, and they have mentors and coaches. Where someone will go in to Carrie's classroom, watch her teach fractions, meet with them after and say, Carrie, your students are struggling with fractions. Let me help you. And they work together as a profession to try and develop it. They also tell me that those systems weed out the bad teachers, because if they have this professional group working together, and Carrie, Nolan's not making it. Okay. Nolan's not making it. But pretty soon the other teachers are saying, look, Nolan, you're just not hacking it. You just don't seem to be able to get this. So there's some things we can do to make a big difference. Here's the plan, and it's controversial. I agree with you. The plan is a 2018 ballot initiative campaign aimed to improve educational outcomes. They want to raise your income tax by 7/8%, which raises about $750 million. Funding would be appropriated to public schools, K-12 at UCAT, and higher education based on student enrollment. It would go directly to the schools, and schools have to put an improvement plan together with some district guidelines, and then they have to meet those guidelines to keep the money or keep those improvement plans. We've pulled it, we've focus grouped it, we've really trying to figure out where we are with this, but we believe we've got as much as 67% approval among the city of the citizenry. There's a steering committee that he's flashed up there for you, and you probably can't read it. Gail Miller, Scott Anderson, and Ron Jibson are the chairs, and you can see the people that have lent their name to this. It's a serious effort by serious people to try and make a difference. I'm not going to go through the next slide. It talks about how much money would go through each school, but I'm going to be out of time. And we often hear in the state, well, money doesn't make any difference. We had a Mark Tucker, who was kind of a favorite of the conservatives at a conference. And somebody got up and said to him, well, you're saying that money doesn't make any difference. In other words, that high-performing schools may not always have the most money, although Massachusetts is an exception. And he said, well, you got to have enough money. You got to have enough money to have the basic system work. You got to have enough money. The National Bureau of Economic Research recently reported additional funding does lead to better educational achievement. Let me tell you quickly about the Roy Cohen. I live in Roy, and I'm proud to be raised in Roy. Roy's graduation rate was 72%, dismal 72%. Alan Hall, who many of you know, who was the chair of Prosperity 2020, another Roy resident, walked into the school and says, we got to fix things. We gave him $250,000 out of his own pocket. They went to work. They raised it 15%. When somebody believed in them. They brought the principals from the 8 elementaries and the 2 junior highs and said, we've got to deal with this issue. We can do it. They started taking the Hispanic kids from Roy and have them read the kids in elementary school, the Hispanic kids in elementary school. They have money to pay these kids to be able to go do that. The counselors started knocking on the doors of the kids and saying, where are you? I met with one Hispanic kid and said, I didn't think anybody cared. And you say, well, where's the parents? The parents work with their 2 jobs. They weren't there. That's why I said, I don't think I understand poverty. I don't live in that kind of world. They could not. He said, I didn't think anybody cared. And he graduated. We've got other examples in the Granite School District, the Toledo School District, and so forth. Well, why education? Utah has a young and growing population, abundance of natural resources, and a long-standing culture of cooperation and innovation, and a workforce that is sought after. Carrie. My grandmother's name was Carrie. I know I'd like her. Well, the question remains as to whether or not Utah can emerge with a stronger economy, a significantly more high-paying job without a high-quality education system. Moreover, can Utah expect to emerge as a center of innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustained economic growth without greater attention to the institutions who drive that kind of progress? In an age of accelerations where people are being divided by their educational attainment, can we risk not ensuring that we have the best in our classrooms and the best students have been trained to critically think and prepare themselves for the fast-paced world? There's little doubt that Utah will become bigger, more people, more communities. There will also be greater demands for roads, water, and infrastructure, and clean air. Beyond the political rhetoric and the current economic success, that's the high employment, will Utah emerge not just bigger, but significantly better as a place for individuals and families to live and work? Our future is tied to our ability to train the workforce of the future, and our way of life depends on educated citizens who are involved. As I said in the beginning, I'm here to convince you that our educational system needs additional resources. And it's time for the community to rise up and support them. Now, Reddy and Jackson's world will be better for them if our children and grandchildren will be able to have us do what we need to do now to provide for them in the future. If you'd like to join us, we've got our site up here. We'd love to have your help. It's a lonely job, frankly, to be in the one who's out trying to raise taxes. And the only advantage is that Bob Marquardt, who's a good friend of mine, I happen to be active LDS, and I said, Bob, I make it so unpopular I can't go to church. And he says, you can go skiing with me on Sunday. So I might be able to get the deal. Save 10%, who knows? I think I've overstayed my welcome. I appreciate your opportunity to be here. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
You still have time, so we'll entertain some questions. If you haven't already, my friend Michael,
Please.
Yes, thank you for your presentation and your very serious approach to a serious problem. Did you look at the possibility of the alternative of taking away the exemptions for numbers of children? So those that use the services more would pay more, which has been brought up also as a solution.
We have, and frankly, we haven't landed on a final solution. As you might know, the legislature talked about doing something close to that this session, where they weren't going to take away the exemptions for children, but they were going to take away exemptions for people paid like over $75,000. When the legislators saw the numbers, it was so painful they decided not to do it. But we are in discussions now of saying, well, if there's a better way to skin the cat, the legislature frankly wants us to move to sales tax. They are really keen on having a low income tax rate. I believe that's responsible for all the success. I don't happen to agree, but they think we're better off to go with the sales tax. And so we're open-minded. The process will be that we have to have something for the lieutenant governor at a certain time period. We're thinking now it'll be sometime in the summer. We would start gathering signatures sometime in the fall. And if it doesn't go on the ballot, we turn those in about April, and it doesn't go on the ballot until 2018. So we've got a lot of time to think through this, and we welcome. I sent an email out to 3 advisors this morning, tax people, to say, help us think through how to go about this. Is it a combination? Pat Jones is on our committee. As you know, Pat had a bill to do that every year she was up there, I think. And she's certainly part of the influence here, but we haven't landed on a final solution. Can I be rude? We're trying to figure out what we can get past, and we poll, try to figure out what that, and every time we try and do something tricky, we are told that it may end up that the proposal won't pass because there's usually one more group that will be against it. Somebody will be, how can you be it for families? And so we're trying to work through that, but we're open-minded. Back here.
Can you comment on, from your perspective, on whether charters add or detract from achieving your objectives?
Yeah, the question is about charter schools. About 10% of our students now are in charter schools. By the way, the money that we would raise goes to charter schools. So if you're a charter school fan, it goes to the students, so it goes to that school and would be used there. Other than 4 or 5 that are related to the universities, New Ames up in Ogden and so forth, there's no evidence that their performance is any better than the public schools. But the advantage they have is that parents think it's better. And that's a great advantage. So we're not pro or against charter schools. We think we want to educate the student where we find them and try to provide a better result for them. And so we're neutral about charter schools. But the numbers we watch, we think it's a promise of better performance, and it really is one of people liking the result better. They have choice, and as a result of that, they like it better. And a question here.
As former Speaker of the House, would you tell us who are frustrated how we possibly make a difference with the legislators when our own legislator already believes in higher education? How do we affect the others?
The reason we have an initiative is because we've given up trying to convince them. That's the awful truth. We were the #2 donating organization in the state political races in 2016. Education first, other than the realtors, we were the #2 giving money to the legislators trying to have them elected. We've been out recruiting. We go out and try and help people with seminars. We've tried everything we can. But there's an element in the legislature of ultra-right who really dominate a lot of the things that take place. In my day, here's a confession, I raised your taxes in 1987 to come to Bangor. I was a legislator at the time we raised taxes back then. Difficult times. Remember the people up there wanting my head at the Capitol and screaming no more taxes? Today, in those days, we would go to our caucus, and if there was 60 members of the caucus, if we had 31 votes in the caucus, we put it on the floor and vote it up or down. We would let the Democrats join with us if they wanted to, and they did. Today, they go into their caucus and they only get, if they don't get 38 votes out of their caucus, and you take 38 votes to pass a bill in a 75-member House, they won't bring it out on the floor. So it emboldens the very conservative who won't let the sort of the middle figure it out. Now I'm getting deeper. Hope you're not keeping this. Our frustration level was so high, and our feeling about if you see these little kids with early education, there's thousands of kids who need this, not hundreds, thousands. And yet, if you take a little 3 or 4-year-old and give him a head start, the Granite School program has longitudinal data that it works into the 8th grade. They actually have kids who've now gone through their program that are now in the 8th grade. They can catch up with Caucasian kids, and they go on and stay with them. And I keep saying to myself, if I can take a little kid and make sure he isn't in poverty the rest of his life and try and give him a little head start. Have you seen the Envision Utah commercials where the kid jumps in the pool and he's got a thing holding on to him? And Envision Utah's very much in favor of what we're in favor of, so we appreciate their support. I'm gonna lose my voice. One more question, maybe?
Thank you again for the presentation. I do have a question. As I understand it, Utah spends roughly about $6,500 per student per year for public ed. I moved from a state recently that spends, on my school district back east, spent $20,000 per student per year. My question to you is, how much is enough?
Yeah, and I appreciate that viewpoint, and I don't think 20,000 is anywhere near what we ought to give. But when teachers have to buy supplies out of their own pockets, when you can't keep teachers in the classroom, you simply can't keep the good teachers there. I had a woman stop me after one of our conferences, and she said, your problem isn't getting rid of the bad teachers. Your problem is you can't keep the good ones. And that's the problem I face. And unless I try and find something different in that mixture, but do I believe I can tax my way out of it? No. Do I believe we have to get everywhere? Utah Foundation has a report, it was 2015, when they compared Utah and Colorado. We like to think of a word like Colorado, let's beat our socks. They spend 6 times more on full-day kindergarten than we do. They spend 3 times more on pre-K than we do. They spend 33% more in their school systems than we do. Now, is that the right number? I don't know. The system is so starved right now that we're not going to succeed unless we do something. Now, keep in mind, we're a bunch of business people, so we said, we'll give you the money, but we want results. We've got metrics in our proposal to say you have to get the kids to be able to read, they have to be able to write, they have to read arithmetic. We want proficiency, we want them to be able to accomplish something. We want to see results. So it's not like us wanting to throw money at it and just say good luck. We want results, and that's controversial. You get with some of the teachers and they're saying, we don't like that. And I'm saying, well, I'm not going to support it unless it has a results-oriented proposal. But again, I invite you to join with us. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with a group of people. I teared up a little bit when you sang. What a good group of people who do what you do. Thank you.